Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn, are the words spoken by Benjamin Franklin. And in alignment with our theme of the day, from Helen Keller, the best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen, cannot be touched. They must be felt with the heart. Now, what's fascinating is how similar these messages are. Can anyone see what is similar about these two quotes? Both do not merely state the need for interaction with your audience. They go beyond that to involvement. Franklin is more direct with his approach, using an imperative, which is a command, involve me. And Helen Keller is definitely more emotive with her declarative, which is a statement. They must be felt. So here at Toastmasters, how do we move our audience from spectator to participator? And what makes it difficult is that a spectator can appear to be involved, right? They may clap, they may cheer, they may cry, but that doesn't mean that they're fully involved with you. So how do we create that? And one of the most potent ways that I know that I can definitely, that gives me aplomb in my speeches, is sensory imagery. We all experience the world through our 5 senses. And yet, when we give our speeches, we forget everything. They become dull, colorless, soundless even. And so if we can just interject sensory imagery, it really will help to make our audience go from just spectating to involved. So what is sensory imagery? Well, the definition is combining schema, which is the ability to create an image in your head, with information supplied. And we're going to look at the 5 senses now, if this works. I hope you can all see that. Obviously, it's going to be of a dog because I love dogs. I hope that goes big. Yeah. Ooh. Right. So, for example, we have types of imagery here. So auditory imagery is your sense of sound, visual, what you can see, tactile touch, gustatory taste, and olfactory smell. So how does that relate to schema in terms of sensory imagery? Well, we all have expectations. We all have an image of ourselves, of social interactions, of our friends, events, everything, which is why sometimes when things break away from our schema, it can cause us to feel jarring. Now, let me put this in a more friendly manner because I understand this is quite a lot of information. So let's have a look. What is a horse? So this is where I need you guys to interact. What is a horse? Or participate, sorry. Sunil, what is a horse to you? Give me one thing.
Horse, we can ride on the horse.
You can ride a horse. Perfect. Fantastic. Ben, what is a horse to you?
A horse is fast.
A horse is fast. Brilliant. Fantastic. So does that mean then cheetahs, which are fast, are horses? No, they're not, right? Now, this is why quite often children, they may see then like a miniature horse and you say, this is a miniature horse. And they'll think, you're lying to me. There is no way that's a horse. A horse is big and strong. I can ride it. I can't ride that. Well, actually, I probably can because I'm quite small. So that's probably the perfect size for me. But for most people, that isn't, right? So that's why kids will often, say a horse is a cow is a horse, because they're using this schema that they've developed. So is this a tiny horse or a giant dog then? Yeah, which is why we may laugh at this because it plays with our understanding, our image, and it creates something that's either humorous or jarring. And that is why schemas are so powerful. It makes it relatable, it builds connection, and it allows you also to alter people's perception if you have a fresh take on something. So let me give you an example. We know that imagery, as I just explained here in terms of schemas and how our mind puts it together with information. So if it goes to our speeches, if I just said, oh, I went to the park with my friends, nothing wrong with that. It's quite a good statement, makes sense. But if I say it was a bright, sunny day, the sun was scorching down on us, turning our skin toast brown, and there was such a cool breeze, immediately you're more involved and engaged, because you can then have a relatable instance of that. You're like, oh, actually, yeah, that relates back to what I know of going to the park on a summer's day or something like that. So it brings it to life. And what's interesting is that research from Harvard University, Oxford University has shown that visually presented thermal information can cause tactile responses. And what that means in English is that when we see a stimulus, we can feel it physically, which is, I don't know if you've had that experience where if you're somewhere hot, but you start thinking about ice or cold, you actually feel cooler. I don't know if anyone's had that experience. And what's even more interesting is that people who are blind, who we know cannot see anything, actually, when we discuss using imagery and bring it to life using adjectives, using the sensory imagery of touch, sound, they can visualize it in their head, because our brain works in schemas. It works by presenting us with images. So even blind people will have images from what we say. So by including sensory imagery in your speeches, you make a speech inclusive to people who perhaps have additional needs. So it's a really powerful tool. Now, as I mentioned before, we can also move them then from, being something that they're familiar with to something unfamiliar by changing our imagery. And one way you can do that really powerfully is by the use of something called synaesthesia. Does anyone know what that is? Has anyone heard of it? Jackie, I have a sneaky suspicion that you probably do.
Spot.
I'm going to prove you wrong, Kelly, because I don't know what it is.
Okay.
Is it the combination of senses where you can see colour? Is it synesthesia, did you say? Sorry,
yes. Say that again, please. Was that Christine? Sorry.
Yeah, is it the combination of senses? So certain people, certain musicians can see colour, certain artists can music. Yeah, it's music and colour, and those kind of senses are mixed up together.
Yeah, excellent. So actually, synesthesia is when, excellent, thank you, is when, your senses are mixed up. So it's when people can hear colour. And as you rightly said, lots of famous people are known for it. It's a medical condition, but we can also use it in our speeches. So for example, and you probably do it without even realizing it. So for example, icy stare. How is a stare cold? When you're looking at things, are they really cold? Are you projecting ice? No. But we say icy stare and we know immediately, what does icy stare mean? What does that connote to you? Anyone?
Frozen staircase.
Sorry, what was that?
Frozen staircase.
A frozen staircase? Yeah, you might think of a frozen staircase. And then expand on that even further. How does that make you feel?
Very slippery.
Slippery, dangerous, precarious, right? An icy stare is something that is quite cold and chilling. You probably don't want to be in that person's company. So yeah, it fits in with the idea of precariousness, of slippery, of danger. You can also, in line again, I love poetry, and Seamus Heaney was quite just remarkable in his use of it. So for example, he said, when he was talking about farming, because he came from a long life of farming, and he decided that he was going to write poetry. And he often felt quite bad because he wasn't following in his father's footsteps. So he decided that he would bring to life his father's work in his poetry. Now, usually and typically, farming communities are perhaps looked down upon, and writing is seen as higher. So he really wanted to show just how honorable, and really just bring it to life without any, fluff, without any artistic, exaggeration. And he used language, particularly sensory imagery, to really bring that to life, especially for people who perhaps don't know what farming is or what it's like. I mean, I've been to farms, but physically doing it, I have no idea. But when I read his poetry, I can imagine it and I can feel something. And I'm no longer just reading the pages. I'm on you know, reading the pages, the words on the blank paper. I'm participating and involved. So for example, he said the cold smell of potato mold, the squelch and splatter as a turf. Now, synesthesia is used here with cold smell. A smell is a smell. Tactile imagery touches the temperature, the coldness. So if you sniff, it's not really a cold smell, but we all know what that means, right? A cold smell. I mean, what comes to your mind when you think of a cold smell? And again, anyone?
Damp.
Sorry, I heard something?
Damp.
Damp, yeah, excellent. You might think of damp. So you immediately might think of like damp in your home, or, you know, plant the dampness from there. So again, it helps you to not only be connected and drawn in, even if perhaps you've never seen a potato growing in the ground. So it's a really powerful tool to help you to bridge the gap between just watching or just reading and being really involved. And another one, see if you can guess what he's talking about. He says, you ate the first one and its flesh was sweet, like thickened wine, summer's blood. You ate the first one and its flesh was sweet, like thickened wine, summer's blood. Anyone have any idea what he's talking about? And I should tell you, he's not talking about eating human beings or anything like that. So ignore, you know, the literal meaning here. So don't worry, it's not promoting cannibalism in any way. But so anyone can guess what might he be talking about?
Grapes.
Grapes, yeah, possibly grapes. What else?
Strawberries.
Strawberries, yeah. Anything else?
Melon.
Melon. Anything else?
Wine.
Peach, wine, yeah. Excellent. All of you were all talking about fruits or something sweet. He was actually talking about blackberries.
Oh.
Thank you, Ben. That was very, very nicely timed. Yeah, exactly. Instantaneously, your mind's like, oh yeah, I know what that's like. Because it is, isn't it? When you crush it down and it leaves the stains on your hand, it's like almost like wine. And you see them everywhere in the UK in summer. So his use of sensory imagery brings it to life. And maybe at first our brain is racking the schemas, and that's why we all came up with fruits, right? Because we all have that relatability. And again, it really bridges that gap. So to conclude, if you want to truly impact your audience, to speak with aplomb, do not merely speak at them. Do not encourage them to have meaningless interaction, but involve them by allowing their senses to come to life and feast on your words and digest your message so that they can be fueled to take action. Thank you.